For nearly 50 years, a silent machine has been drifting farther into darkness than anything humanity has ever created. It does not think. It does not feel. And yet, it keeps speaking. Launched in 1977, Voyager 1 was never meant to last this long. It was designed for a mission measured in years, not decades. A brief journey to Jupiter and Saturn, and then silence. But silence never came. Instead, Voyager kept going. Past the outer planets. Past the edge of the sun's influence. Past the invisible boundary where our solar system fades into interstellar space. And somehow, it survived. The expected end by the early 2020s, engineers believed they understood how this story would end. The power would slowly fade. The instruments would fail one by one. The signal would weaken into noise, and then disappear. A quiet ending. Predictable. Controlled. But that's not what happened. The transmission in what should have been its final phase, Voyager 1 sent something back. At first glance, it looked exactly like what everyone expected: corrupted data. Broken telemetry. Fragments of meaningless noise. Nothing unusual for a spacecraft that had endured nearly half a century of radiation, extreme cold, and unimaginable distance. Engineers had seen this before. Signals degrade. Bits flip. Systems fail. That's normal. But this wasn't normal. The first anomaly buried inside the noise, something repeated. Not randomly. Not chaotically. But precisely. Patterns began to emerge, not clearly at first, but enough to raise suspicion. Timing intervals. Structured gaps. Sequences that shouldn't exist in damaged data. It was subtle. Almost easy to ignore. But once seen, impossible to unsee. When noise starts looking like design space is full of interference. Cosmic radiation can distort signals. Magnetic fields can scramble transmissions. Aging electronics can produce digital chaos. All of that creates randomness. But randomness has rules. It doesn't organize itself. It doesn't repeat cleanly. It doesn't evolve. This signal did. Enter the new tool. Traditional analysis failed. Every classical system treated the data the same way: as damage. As error. As something to filter out. But one system didn't. A next-generation quantum processor, built to detect hidden structure inside complexity, approached the data differently. Instead of asking, "What's broken?" it asked, "What if this isn't broken at all?" That shift changed everything. The breakthrough: when the data was processed at scale, something unexpected happened. The noise began to collapse. Not disappear. Reorganize. What looked like chaos started revealing layers. Mathematical relationships. Repeating structures. And then, something undeniable. Prime numbers. Why that matters: prime numbers are not random. They are one of the most fundamental patterns in mathematics. They appear in nature, but not like this. Not embedded inside corrupted signals. Not layered within noise. And definitely not in transmissions from a 1977 spacecraft that was never designed to generate them in complex sequences. This wasn't interference. This was structure. The shift at that moment, the story changed. This was no longer about a dying spacecraft. It became something else. Something far more unsettling. Because Voyager 1 wasn't just sending data anymore. It was carrying something. A message, or an imitation? The deeper the analysis went, the stranger it became. The sequences weren't static. They evolved. Starting simple. Then growing more complex. Layer by layer. Almost as if something was teaching. Not dumping information. Guiding interpretation. That's not how natural signals behave. That's how communication works. The impossible question, where could it have come from? Voyager 1 doesn't have the ability to invent new data. It cannot create advanced mathematical structures on its own. It cannot rewrite its own transmission logic. It's not intelligent. There is a possibility, rarely spoken out loud, even among those who study the farthest edges of space. Not because it lacks evidence, but because of what it implies. Voyager 1 may not have been alone. Not in the way we usually imagine. No flashing lights. No physical craft drifting beside it. No dramatic moment of contact captured in a single frame. Nothing so simple. Instead, something quieter. Something far more difficult to prove, and far more disturbing to ignore. Because if this theory is correct, then the encounter didn't happen in space as we understand it. It happened in information. Beyond the edge we thought we knew. When Voyager 1 crossed the boundary of the heliosphere, the vast bubble created by the sun's influence, it entered a region humanity had never explored before. This boundary isn't a wall. It's a transition. A fading. A place where the solar wind slows, where interstellar particles begin to dominate, and where our models start to lose precision. We call it interstellar space. But that name is misleading. Because it suggests emptiness. Silence. Nothingness. And yet, the data doesn't fully agree. Magnetic fields behave strangely here. They twist in ways we didn't predict. Charged particles interact differently. Energy distributions shift. Subtle anomalies appear, not dramatic enough to rewrite physics, but persistent enough to raise questions. Questions we still don't fully understand. And it's in this region, this poorly understood threshold between star systems, that Voyager 1 sent back its strangest transmission. Not a signal, but a response. At first, everything pointed toward a familiar explanation. Degradation. Distance. Time. A machine finally beginning to fail. But that explanation started to collapse under scrutiny. Because what emerged from the data wasn't just noise. It was structure. And not just structure, response-like behavior. That distinction changes everything. Because it suggests something critical. The transmission wasn't merely breaking down. It was being shaped. Not something new, something altered. Most discussions about extraterrestrial communication begin with a simple assumption. If something out there wants to send a message, it will create one. A new signal. A clear transmission. Something intentional and direct. But this case doesn't follow that pattern. Instead, it suggests something far more sophisticated. Far more efficient. Whatever Voyager encountered didn't build a message from scratch. It didn't need to. Because Voyager was already sending one. The signal we never stopped sending for decades, Voyager 1 has been transmitting a steady stream of data back toward Earth. Temperature readings. Magnetic field measurements. System diagnostics. A continuous flow. Weak, but consistent. A thread connecting Earth to the most distant object we've ever built. That signal travels outward before it ever reaches us. Through space. Through regions we barely understand. Through whatever exists beyond the heliosphere. And that raises a question we never seriously considered before. What else might be listening? The mirror effect. Now imagine something, not necessarily alive in the way we define it, but advanced in ways we cannot yet measure, interacting with that signal. Not blocking it. Not overpowering it. Not announcing itself. But doing something far more subtle. It observes. It analyzes. And then, it reflects. But not perfectly. Because a perfect reflection would go unnoticed. Instead, it alters. Just enough. Embedding structure inside the existing transmission. Layering information beneath noise. Hiding complexity within familiarity. So that to an untrained system, it looks like failure. But to the right observer, it reveals intention. Like an echo that doesn't belong to you. Picture this. You stand at the edge of a vast canyon. You shout. Your voice travels outward, hits the distant walls, and returns. An echo. Expected. Predictable. But now imagine something different. The echo comes back, but it's not the same. It carries your tone. Your rhythm. Your voice. But the words have changed. You didn't say them. You never formed them. And yet, they sound like you. That's what this transmission resembles. Not an external voice. But a modified one. Something that began as ours, and returned as something else.